birds evolved from theropod dinosaurs. Birds are dinosaurs. How cool is that? That's right. Birds are dinosaurs. Nearly all birds fly, and those that don't actually evolved from ancestors that did fly. Birds have sort of a honeycombed bone structure. And what this means is their bones have a lot of hollow space. We often refer to birds as having hollow bones. Those make their bones very, very, very light. That's important because if you want to fly, you cannot weigh a lot. The more dense, the thicker your bones, the heavier your bones, the harder it is to actually fly. So these honeycomb structures allow for large hollow spaces, making the bones very light. The frigate bird has a 7-foot wingspan. From wingtip to wingtip, it is 7 feet. And its skeleton weighs a 1/4 pound. Slightly more than a hamburger. Just to give you an idea of how much hollow space is in those birds. Birds, and also in order to save space and save on weight, have reduced organs. Birds have a single ovary, whereas all other animals have paired ovaries. Well, all other animals that have them have paired ovaries. Birds are toothless. They are endothermic. So birds maintain their own body temperature. We call that warm-blooded. So basically, a number of chemical reactions going on in the body generate heat, and that's what warms the body of the birds. However, to continually power those chemical reactions, we have to eat a lot more. The ectothermic reptiles can just sort of choose not to eat for a week. And it doesn't matter because they don't have chemical reactions required to power their body, required to maintain the temperature. If their temperature drops, they just chill out or they find the sun. So, birds have huge breast muscles to allow them to flap their very large feathered wings. And feathers are made of the same protein structure as scales, just slightly different in organization. So they're made out of the same protein structure as scales, which is kind of neat. Just to show that evolutionary link between birds and reptiles. Birds, as a group, tend to be highly intelligent when compared to other reptiles, and in some birds, when compared to mammals. The New Caledonia crow is a more advanced tool user than a chimpanzee. You want a really cool scientific experiment. Scientists working with, I can't remember the name of the bird, but it was related to crows and magpies and starlings, but it wasn't one of those. Anyway, they were working with this bird, and there's this Aesop fable where there's a bird and it wanted a snack, and it dropped rocks into water in order to displace the water and raise the water level until the food that they wanted was right there and they could grab it. Well, scientists actually placed a tasty snack into a column of water that the bird couldn't quite reach down into. And then they provided rocks in the enclosure. And the birds actually picked up the rocks and dropped them into the water. And when they could, they grabbed larger rocks to get more water displacement. This is a bird having some ability to conceptualize that rocks in water displace the volume. That's pretty advanced stuff. The New Caledonia crow will basically take a twig and modify its shape, its length, its width to take care of different kinds of tool tasks. Scientists studying the New Caledonia crow accidentally left a piece of metal wire in their enclosure. And having never been exposed to this little flexible piece of metal wire before, the New Caledonia crows looked at it, bent it around a little, and easily bent it into shape to solve a tool puzzle that the scientists had created for them. So they can conceptualize that they can make tools out of anything flexible. So chimps, their tool use is grab a stick and poke into a hole to collect ants. That's their tool use. New Caledonia crows make their tools and modify their tools. And they're birds that can modify the volume of water through displacement. This is some pretty smart stuff. Some birds are on the list of animals that we are investigating whether or not they have self-awareness, sentience. So, very intelligent animals. So parrots and crows are the smartest of all birds. The corvids. So crows, ravens, magpies, starlings, others in that family. So they're highly diverse, and they have complex communication abilities. And I just went through some of these advanced tool use. And some birds can mimic human speech, namely parrots and parakeets, and also, again, the corvid family. Crows and ravens can actually do mimicry. Not on the level of parrots, but they can mimic human speech, which is kind of cool. So parrots, crows, ravens, starlings, it's pretty good. Birds are just amazing. So here's a variety of birds. Up here we have some pretty rainforest, I think lorikeets, I'm not sure offhand. Here's a mountain bluebird. This is a cockatoo picking up some food and feeding the family dog. Why? The cockatoo has its own reasons, I guess. Here's a pretty little songbird. I think this is a type of a finch. Here's a swan, of course, and then here's an African parrot throwing a turtle off of a counter into a trash can because it's a jerk. And this is an image showing just how similar a bird wing is to an airplane wing and how they displace the air around them and aid in flight. So, pretty cool. And finally, we come to the mammals. Okay, so class Mammalia first appeared 200 million years ago. In fact, the first organisms to show mammal-like tendencies were the mammal-like reptiles. And there was a period of Earth's history that was dominated by the mammal-like reptiles. And this was in the early Triassic era of Earth. The mammal-like reptiles dominated. And they looked pretty cool, actually. Let me pull one up. This Dimetrodon was a mammal-like reptile. So, pretty neat that this is a common ancestor of modern mammals. So, a reptile, a species of animal that showed reptilian features like scales and mammalian features. So, pretty sweet, if you ask me. So, anyway, there are, that we know of right now, roughly 5,500 species, but we still find new ones here and there in some of the most isolated places. 80 mammal species are totally aquatic, and they evolved from terrestrial mammals. Roughly 1,000 species have wings, and these are the bats. Bats are pretty cool. They're a great example of evolution coming up with similar solutions to the same problem. So natural selection, when it comes to animals that can defy gravity, turns out the basic wing plan is pretty useful. In birds, their bones that lead to the wings are essentially an arm, the humerus and the radius and the ulna that are highly reduced and fused, and then one finger. And that one finger comes out. And it's actually a little bit of a nub of a finger there. And it's mostly a very long radius and ulna and a long humerus. Whereas with bats, they have a relatively long, well, not a really long humerus, and then a relatively long radius and ulna, but most of their wing is from their finger bones. So they actually have 5 digits. Their thumb is just this little reduced claw up top, and then their finger bones actually extend. They have the same number of bones in their fingers as us, but they're very, very long. And they extend very far. And so the primary feature that gives bat wings their surface area is that webbed skin between fingers, which is pretty cool. The rest of the mammals are terrestrial. And all mammals are endothermic. They maintain their own body temperature. And mammals have 2 important unique characteristics. Mammary glands, which produce milk, and hair, which insulates the body and helps to maintain the internal temperature. Now let's look at some types of mammals. There are 3 major groups. The first is the monotreme. Oh, come on. Spelling mistake this late in the game? Not on my watch. The first is the monotremes. These are egg-laying mammals. That's right. They're a group of mammals that actually lay an external amniotic egg, which is pretty epic. Then there are the marsupials. The marsupials have internal fertilization and internal development. So instead of laying an external egg, fertilization occurs internally, and then the egg develops into an embryo and then starts to develop inside a uterus. Now, marsupials are notable because they give birth to a highly underdeveloped offspring. It still has tiny little limb buds, and it's very reduced. And it has to crawl from the mother's vagina to its pouch. And inside the pouch is where it latches onto the nipples, and at that point it drinks milk and finishes development. I don't know if I have a picture in here, but why don't I just throw in a newborn kangaroo so we can take a look at what I mean when they're born highly reduced. So this is a newborn kangaroo. This is how it comes out of the uterus. That is not something well developed. This is actually already in the pouch. So it's already made the trek through the mother's fur from her vagina to her pouch to latch onto one of these nipples and drink milk and finish its development, where it goes through stages on its way to becoming a functional baby kangaroo. So here's another picture of a newly born kangaroo. And to give you an idea of size, that's actually after some time in the pouch. So these are interesting. You know, only a small amount of development, well, not a small amount, part of the development occurs inside the uterus, and the rest of the development occurs in the pouch. And then we have the Eutherian mammals. And the Eutherian mammals are placental mammals, in which all embryonic development occurs inside the uterus, and you give birth to a baby capable of living in the external environment. So that is Eutherians. So let's look at the monotremes. There are only 2 living monotremes. Monotremes blow my mind. They're awesome. Their milk glands are actually not nipples like the rest of mammals. Instead, the milk is secreted onto the surface of their skin. So their milk glands are kind of like sweat glands. They'll just secrete milk onto their skin, and then the babies lap up the milk. So the duck-billed platypus is one monotreme, and then the spiny echidna is the other monotreme. They lay external eggs, and they're soft eggs. They're not hard like a reptile or a bird egg. And then they secrete milk onto the skin in their fur like sweat. So this is a spiny echidna, and these are spiny echidna eggs right here. And then these are some baby duck-billed platypuses. This is a duck-billed platypus. Oh, so cute. When naturalists first brought preserved duck-billed platypus back from Australia, the scientific community at large thought it was a hoax. In part because, look, I mean, a beaver tail and body and then a duck face here. What is that? And also because there was a naturalist who kind of went gallivanting around South America and using his skills in taxidermy made up his own species. So they had already been epically hoaxed and trolled by some guy with taxidermy. And so later when people brought preserved platypus over to Europe through expeditions, everybody went, whatever, you're a troll, shut up, troll. And then somebody finally brought a living one back with them. And these things are epic. These right here that look kind of like peanuts, these are platypus eggs. To give you an idea of how small they are. That's just roughly quarter-sized coin. So very small eggs in the monotremes, and they hatch. Platypus are especially cool because in addition to having a duck bill, a beaver body, they have like electrical sensing organs along their bill so that they can sense little clams and mussels living in the mud beneath them. And then the males have spurs, ankle spurs, and they actually produce venom that they can poison each other when fighting for mates, and they can use them in defense. So they're venomous, beaver-tailed, duck-billed mammals that lay eggs and sweat milk. Yeah, they're awesome. Next up, the marsupials. They have mammary glands, teats. So they have nipples located inside a pouch. They give birth to incredibly small, underdeveloped young, and then the young have to crawl through the fur from the vagina to the pouch where they attach to a teat and finish development in the pouch. Kangaroos, koalas, opossums, wombats, these are all mammals. They're all marsupial mammals. So the opossum is actually a marsupial mammal. So here in North America, we have our own marsupial. So here's some kangaroos cruising around. Here's a koala in scritchies. And here's some examples of different marsupials. Australia, the mammals, the only native terrestrial mammals are marsupials. And then there are bats, and then some of the aquatic and semi-aquatic mammals living off the coast, like dolphins and whales, and then seals live around there. But as far as mammals living on land, the ones that evolved in Australia are marsupials. There's even marsupial moles in Australia. So it's pretty cool the kind of diversity you get from evolution. So it's pretty cool. The opossum here in North America is in fact a mammal. So then we have the Eutherians, which are placental mammals. And the placenta aids the infant development inside the uterus. What is going on there with that picture? It's supposed to be adorable. Anyway, what? Okay, so if this were operating correctly, that would be a polar bear getting tickled. Placenta aids in embryonic development. So the placenta provides an interface through which gas, waste, and nutrient exchange can occur. So the mother's blood vessels bring nutrients and gas to the placenta. And the baby's blood vessels sort of run up near the mother's blood vessels, very, very close. And so we have these very thin blood vessels, very thin small blood vessels called capillaries. And they're so thin that oxygen and nutrients can pass out of them. And then the baby's capillaries are right here. And so the nutrients and oxygen pass out of mom's capillaries into baby's capillaries, and then they travel to the developing embryo. And then the waste from the baby goes, the other way, and mom takes care of it for the baby. So that's what a placenta does. A placenta aids in development by providing nutrient, gas, and waste exchange for the developing embryo. Because of this placenta and because the infants are born much more well developed, pregnancy lasts far longer in placental mammals than it does in monotremes, which are just pregnant long enough to lay an egg, and marsupials, which give birth to highly underdeveloped young. The young are birthed extremely well developed. And they tend to be able to fend for themselves within a very short period of time, if not immediately, depending on the species. And we have roughly 5,300 species of Eutherian mammals. So here's a little sloth, and here's some baby little red kangaroos. Here's a manatee right here. This is a horse, elephant, a human, and a lion. Here is a Neanderthal. So this was a hominid species of man. Well, not modern man, not the man living now, but an extinct species of man. And here's the Australopithecus, one of our closest common ancestors between apes and hominids. Here's good old little raccoon. They're adorable. Here's a bat, and you can see, as I was talking about, those finger bones right there being extended. Well, there they are. So the thumb is going to be over here, and then we have 1, 2, 3, and then the fourth finger bone right along there. And so bats have wings that look superficially similar to birds, but birds, their wing is, the bones for the fingers are highly underdeveloped. There's maybe 1 to 3 in there. And then you have the radius and ulna, which is very long, and then the humerus, which is very long. So this is a bird wing, and then a bat wing is primarily produced by the fingers. So that's pretty neat. So then we have even more Eutherian mammals here, all the placental mammals. So we have moles, rodents, primates, cats, dogs, bears, rodents. We have elephants, horses, rabbits. We have weasels. We have giraffes, camels. These are the ungulates. Then we have aardvarks, bats. Oh gosh, sloths, armadillos, and anteaters, pangolins, which are pretty cool. Manatees, seals, sea lions, whales, and dolphins, and so many more. So there's a staggering diversity of placental mammals out there. Here's good old primates. Humans are a kind of primate, so always remember you share common ancestry with apes and monkeys. So neat. So there it is. The end. Study hard, folks. Good luck on the exam. And let's see. Yeah.